These pawns are not brilliant. So that's something to avoid. So that's one critical idea. Knight takes e6 doesn't work. And bishop takes e6. Is it to do with simply the 7th rank? Yes, rook c2 again, the 7th rank. So what is white doing about rook takes b2? And also, what's another threat? Maybe knight takes f3 as a threat. If white didn't do anything, knight takes f3 and bishop takes f4, exploiting this pin as well. So this rook is pressurizing in both directions. Say rook b1. So in fact here, would knight takes f3 work? Ripper's not giving that, it's giving knight c4. Let's have a look. Knight takes f3. No, the bishop would be dropping off. That would be a way of losing a piece. So knight c4 is the better move. And now bishop takes... Ah, now! Not rook takes c4, bishop takes f4 here. And again we're reaching an equalish position with black's rook ending up active. And, you know, black hasn't got too many problems, if any, here. So f6, that pawn, if we go back, it can't be taken favourably by either knight or bishop here. Okay, what else does f6 do then? If f6 is being gotten away with, you know, say white didn't, now Topalov took on g6, but out of interest, you know, say Topalov just did any move like rook d1. Okay, yeah, bishop f7 or bishop e8. So bishop f7, and you may wonder what would be the advantage of this if this did happen. Well, black might have a lot of new possibilities now that he's protecting e6, and also he's liberated the g pawn. So maybe g5, g4 might be a consideration, and then get a rook to g8 and, you know, have counterplay on the g file. So that's why f6, you know, it's a bit of an ugly looking move, but it, you know, if it tucks the bishop on f7, or even the bishop can come to e8 in some lines, then that's great. So here Topalov, he took on g6 actually, and I think he knows that he's blown all opening advantage now, and it will be very difficult to try and win this. I mean, he's got the bishop pair, but it's kind of academic here, because this dark square grip is good enough. He plays g3, and the pawn can't be taken here, I think, because of rook g1. If we have a look at this position now, if knight f4 here, I mean this is just silly. If the bishop moves, then rook g6. So knight f4. So white in this position, actually, believe it or not, this is tactically very vulnerable. If this did happen, you know, Anand would be looking very silly, because here not bishop takes f4. I think that's only a small advantage for white, you know, picking up g7. The bigger advantage here is just king f1, and black here would be kind of losing a piece. Almost bishop h2, say, check. I mean, both these pieces are vulnerable, in fact, or just rook takes b7. And if the knight moves, say, this is just a disaster actually for a different reason now, not winning the piece, for check. And everything's dropping off, bishop takes e6, everything's like falling to bits. In fact, c8 and bishop f7 are kind of lethal here as well. Threats. So this is something to avoid. So, and I can't just take that g3 pawn, just in case you were wondering. Okay, so he plays actually a much safer move, knight e5. Okay, and now Topalov plays f4, and then I think is equal now. Knight c6, bishop c3, and he forces off one of the bishop pair. He gets rid of Topalov's bishop pair now with bishop b4. So these bishops came off. Rook d1, and now Anand plays knight c6 again. Now I was looking when I was following the live commentary, ideas like e5 and knight d4, but they're always going to be a bit risky. If you play a move like e5, you're giving up the d5 square, so you can't just do what you want here with the black pieces. This d5 is critical, and also this pawn is a bit vulnerable. Remember, white's got this light square bishop, but this pawn can be attacked from the side, and actually that happens in a scary moment of this game, that this pawn in particular is potentially weak. And it's strange actually that Anand puts another pawn on the light square. So after rook d2 he plays g5. But it worked out in the game. You know, maybe he was a little bit in trouble. Who knows without intensive analysis. Here, it's not. I don't think it's that favourable for white to try and win the pawn. If we look at this this position, rook g8, white's pawns are fragmented here, and that will give Anand a very nice position, it seems, at the cost of just an isolated pawn. But he's got e5. These pawns are all kind of fragmented. So Topalov allows the kind of squeezing to occur now with the move g4 by Anand, but he's putting another pawn on these light squares, so that's potentially controversial. And white has got an entry point here. This c5 is the entry point into black's position, so these are the potentially exploitable weaknesses. So this could be scary, and in fact the entry point is headed to now with rook c2, also kind of pinning that knight a bit as well. I don't think Anand wants to try and trade knights here, although I was thinking that might be possible. Is it a big deal if the knights were traded here? Does white have a small advantage? Well maybe e5 would fix this pawn. Maybe that's an interesting move here, but this didn't happen. Anand actually just played rook d8. So he's allowing Topalov to have this entry point and to target this seemingly vulnerable h5 pawn. But for the moment, rook c5 is not possible because of rook d2. So Topalov's next move is against this infiltration. He's preparing like rook c5. He just plays king e3. So Anand plays rook d6. So he's allowing this seemingly aggressive move, rook c5, finally, trying to attack this pawn on the light square. So rook c5. So why isn't this dangerous? Well, again, for the same kind of reason that rook d2 was dangerous, also rook d3 is another entry point. So Anand's next move is kind of logical, knight b4. So he's defending by counter-attacking now, because now he's introduced the threat of rook d3 check to try and win this bishop if rook h5. So Topalov plays rook c7 check, the king moves back, and now he defends the third rank against rook d3 with rook c3. Anand goes back with his king now, and now another committal move from Topalov, moving a pawn forward. He plays actually e5. So this is a bit of a controversial move. Is this pawn going to be weak, or is it usefully fixing this e6 weakness for that bishop to target? Well, Anand just plays rook d7, and one side effect, one disadvantage of e5 is that f5 is potentially more vulnerable now and good for a knight in the long run. As we'll see, a knight actually ends up there. This knight ends up on f5 later in the game. So e takes f6, king takes f6, and we're about equal again. So here king e2, and now Anand starts this rerouting maneuver. He's got a rerouting maneuver, knight c6 to e7 to f5. So he plays knight c6. In fact, he can also come to f5 via d4, f5, where if this knight comes to f5, it's hitting g3, and black's getting really comfortable. So in fact, king e1, strange looking move. I know it's avoiding the immediate check, but it seems as though white is prepared to accept a passive position now. His bishop is driven now to the very first rank now, bishop d1. And Anand's getting an edge. I'm surprised he didn't try and grind down Topalov a long way from this position. He first plays a5, so the bishop can never get at this pawn. A nice little Magnus Carlsen like waiting move in the endgame. So rook c5, which again it seems to be actually now be forking two pawns. But it doesn't matter here because knight f5's coming, so that's hitting g3, giving protection to h5 laterally and hitting that g3 pawn. So white has to defend the g3 pawn back with the rook, and Anand decided here to give Topalov a break. he just repeats moves with knight d4. So after rook c5, knight f5, and rook c3, and apparently, you know, these they're playing with Topalov wants to play with Sophia rules, so no, you know, verbal offering of draw, but instead repetition of moves to force a draw. Okay, but I actually thought, you know, Black was doing really, you know, nicely here. He'd achieved, you know, the mission, a nice, really nice place for the knight. You know, why wouldn't he play on from this position, I was wondering. For example, you know, rook d4 to b4. So rook d4, you could argue, well, this advantage is minimal. So say bishop c2, keeping an eye on a2. So rook b4. All right, let's reach this position now. Maybe white can just comfortably just eliminate that knight now on f5. So bishop takes, king takes, and then go